Got it. All right. So, uh, last time we ended up, we started talking about the self, if you guys remember, because that's always the starting point for talking about anything in social psychology, is because, social psychology is all about how the self interacts with everybody else. You got to understand the self, right? And it's a really hard topic to talk about, to teach, because there is so much research on the self. I mean, there's just tons. If you go to scholar.google.com, I don't know if you guys know about scholar.google.com. It's Google's service where you can search through research papers and patents. But if you go to scholar.google.com and do a search for social psychology self, oh my God, you're gonna, there's just tons of papers. Um, so we're going to continue talking about the self, right? I'm going to start on page 34, self knowledge. Okay, we're going to start talking about self knowledge. Um, and to summarize, what we talked about. Well, let me summarize a little bit about what we talked about last time. So if you look at table two, there's a table two in the bottom of page 34. Let me see if I can pop it up on the screen real quick. I might have it. Let's see. Let me get my documents, work, TAMUSA, teaching, social psychology, Myers, images, chapter. What chapter is this? Two? Yeah, two. Never know what fucking chapter I'm teaching. Let's see. Oh, there we go. And I don't have it. Shit. Okay. I thought I had it. Well, I thought I had a picture of that. Oh well. Anyway. Okay. So on the bottom of chapter two, uh, there is a little table that's very handy. It's a self concept, and it really talks about the differences between. If you remember, one of the things that we talked about last time was the difference between an individualistic culture and a collectivistic culture. The take home message there is that the culture you're from influences yourself. Yourself, okay. Um, so identity in a independent, individualistic culture like the United States is personal. It's defined by individual traits and goals, right? So it's like whatever it's the me, my identity, me. Okay, but the identity in a collectivistic culture like Japan is social. It's defined by your connections with others. And that's a really crazy thing to get across. I've actually worked, I did work as a consultant with some Japanese companies, and it is just like night and day difference, dealing with, their values of their collectivistic values. You really have to take into account their how they feel about their connections with the company or with their nation, and it's a and they feel sorry for us. They feel sorry for us because we're so individualistic and not connected to each other, which is hilarious. But what matters to an individualistic person in an individualistic culture is me, right? Personal achievement and fulfillment. Those are the most important things. Whereas what matters to somebody from a collectivist culture is we, the group goals and the solidarity, how the group is working together, the social responsibilities that you have on relationships, right? So every relationship brings a set of responsibility with it, right? Whether it's a friend or a parent, or an employee, you have responsibilities that you have to meet as a member of a particular group. Disapproves, obviously, in our society. One of the things that we disapprove of heavily is conformity, right? Conformity. Do your own thing, be yourself, right? But in interdependent cultures like Japan, what they disapprove of most is egotism, right? Being narcissistic and egocentric, right? Which is, I mean, a lot of Japanese people think all Americans are like that. right? Just because of our individualistic culture. Um, so in a nutshell, in a nutshell, right? Your self is determined to a large extent by the culture that you come from. Those the many Hispanics that are on this at this lecture, I don't know about you. I think maybe it's different in my generation than it was in your generation. I don't know, but being, having an identity that is kind of like American and Mexican, um, sometimes it's not easy. I mean, I didn't start speaking English until I was like 6 years old, and but at that age is when my parents basically banned us from speaking Spanish at home because back then uh, you weren't allowed to speak Spanish in public, if you can believe that. You couldn't speak Spanish in school. You couldn't speak Spanish in, places where there was people that might be offended. So, they wanted us to blend in at school, so they basically banned us from speaking Spanish. And, for me, it's been real difficult sometimes, crossing, trying to be like having white values and then having Mexican values. It's tough. It really, I don't know if any of you have ever experienced anything like that, but it's kind of tough. Sometimes, for me anyway. It was for me, especially when I was younger. It's not so much anymore, I guess, because people are a little bit more accepting now than they were 30, 40, 50 years ago. But self knowledge, you know know yourself. You guys have heard that term before, right? Know yourself. To thine own self be true. Know yourself. That's one of the most powerful pieces of advice you can have, is to know yourself well. Well, here's what sucks. We don't do a very good job of knowing ourselves. We really don't. We kind of suck at it, actually, for the most part. There's ways you could fix that, but for example, predicting your behavior. So most of y'all probably have Netflix, right? Because it's cheap. It's like what, $10 a month, whatever it is. And I don't know, how Netflix shows you recommend, things that you might like, right? It gives you based on now when they first started, their streaming service, they used to ask people what they like. So they would say, what do you want to see? And you'd put like, I want to see highly educational and intellectual content. So you put that down. And so the recommendation engine would pop that up, and then nobody would watch it. They wouldn't watch it. They would instead be watching, like, Beavis and Butthead Do America, or Animal House, or you know, or Cops Unlimited. They would be watching like lowbrow stuff. So they figured out pretty quickly that most people didn't really know what they wanted. So instead, what they did was they started doing analysis on people like you, people who watch what you're watching. What do they like? And they would just cross-reference that. So um, they would just generate, and they would base that on all the data from all the clicks and all the watching that people did. And that it turns out that recommendation engine is much more accurate, because it's based on actual viewing behavior instead of what it is people claim they want, right? So we're pretty bad at predicting our behavior. um, one of the classic examples is planning a task, right? Being able to predict how long it's going to take to do something. This is my fucking life. So it's called the planning fallacy. The planning fallacy. And the planning fallacy is we tend to underestimate how long it'll take to complete a task. And everybody who's done project management knows this. It's just human beings are incredibly bad at planning how long it's going to take to do something. So I run at IB. I work at IBM, and I run a team of I don't know. I don't know. 12. I think it's 12 people. I've lost count. 12 people all over the world. I have people in Poland and London and Singapore and here. And these are people that build learning content for artificial intelligence. So we build training materials for AI, and it's every fucking day. It's like, okay, this is what we need to build. How long is it going to take? How long is it going to take? Where are you at? Where are you at? Where are you at? It's amazing how bad we all are, myself included, at predicting how long things are going to take. So whenever one of my people tells me, "Oh yeah, I'm going to build this, and I think I'll be done by the middle of October," I'll say, "Okay, let's make it the middle of November." Let's tell people it's going to be the middle of November because I guarantee you, you're probably wrong. Um, so we're just really bad at planning things related to ourselves. The other thing that we're not good at, is predicting our feelings. Predicting our feelings. Okay. One of the classic examples is, as a guy, right? As a guy, I would say, right, as a decent man, I like to think I'm semi decent. I'm not that decent, but I'm sort of decent. I would like to say, okay, if I'm getting hot and heavy with a woman, and she decides that she doesn't want to, do the nasty with me, that I would say, okay, well, let's, all right, cool, whatever. That's what masturbation is for, right? Okay, so like back off, right? But what happens when you're in the heat of the moment, right? And women too, right? You're thinking, oh man, I'm not gonna have sex with this guy. I'm not gonna have sex with this guy. I'm not gonna have sex with this guy. And you just sort of lose it, right? That's a tough one, right? And some people are like able to pull back and say okay, but it's really hard, sometime for some people to assess what they're going to do. Classic example, hungry shopper. If you're Don't go shopping for groceries when you're hungry. Okay, do not go shopping. You all know, most of you should know this, right? I hope you do, because it's not a good thing. Um, it's because hungry shoppers buy more things that they shouldn't buy. They do more impulse buying. Okay, and again, you might have every intention in the world of going in there and saying, here's my list. I'm going to follow my list, and I'm going to get the fuck out, right? But then you walk in, right? And of course, if you go to, especially if you go to like Central Market or one of these sort of fancy places, what you smell, right? You smell the coffee and the bread baking, and the roasted chicken, and you're like, oh well, gee, those they say those cookies are fresh. Let's grab some of those, right? And you end up impulse buying, right? Um, the other thing that people are really bad at is estimating how they will feel as a result of a bad event. They take it. They tend to overestimate how they will feel for as a result of a bad event, like a breakup, like a romantic breakup, or a job loss, and they overestimate how they will feel with good things, like losing weight, or getting something for free. They overestimate that. Um, one of the classic examples of that is people who win the lottery. Now, I don't know about you, but you know how they say money doesn't buy happiness? That's kind of true, but I don't know. If I won the lottery, I'd be fucking delirious with happiness. Okay, I would be like really happy. Um, that's what I say now, right? That's what I say now. I think I would. I mean, I'd be paying bills and buying shit left and right, and just throwing money at stupid shit, right? That's what I would do. But the research says I'm probably not going to be as thrilled and happy about it, especially in the long term after the fact. And we see this a lot with a lot of lottery winners. There's a significant number of lottery winners who were more miserable after they won than before they won. Which is amazing. And to me, I'm like, this does not compute. You know, I don't want to work anymore. I want to just, I want to be home and not work and have money, right? But what are you going to do? But that whole thing of overestimating how happy you're going to be or overestimating how sad you're going to be as a result of something is called the impact bias. Impact bias. Um, and another reason for the impact bias is because we underestimate how coping mechanisms will help us deal with the impact of whatever it is we're dealing with, right? So, when I can remember certainly when when I was, getting divorced, it sucked, right? It sucked. It was tough going through that. But, one of the things that helped a lot was the support from my family and my friends. I got a lot of support from my family. I mean, they just came out from out the woodwork, to support me. Even like cousins I had, oh, kitty, kitty, even cousins I hadn't heard from in, years, they were like, there to support me. So that's probably one of the reasons for the impact bias with negative things, especially, is that we kind of underestimate the support mechanisms we're going to get. Um, so
Professor Lopez
yeah.
Exe has stopped running. Would you like to restart the program?
Oh yeah, I know. Like, I'm sorry. Was I talking to you?
You're
Yeah.
fine. I'm
we
just
we
teasing.
we have task failed successfully. Right.
Yeah.
My favorite error from Windows. Task failed successfully. Um, One of the things about about our self analysis, right, is again, we're not very good at it, and so there's been some explanations. Offered to sort of understand this a little bit, and one of them has been the this explanation called the dual attitude system. The dual attitude system. We have automatic, implicit, unconscious attitudes regarding someone or something, right? And right, so we have these implicit attitudes, right? And then we have explicit attitudes that we manifest, that we show. And one of the things about um, implicit and explicit attitudes. Now, first of all, we're going to talk a lot about attitudes later, but basically, an attitude is defined as a thought. I'm sorry, an attitude about something is defined as the thoughts, feelings, and behaviors that you direct toward something, a person, or a place or a thing. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Think, feel, and do. Okay, that's those three things together form an attitude. And we have this dual attitude system suggests that we have explicit attitudes that we show, and implicit attitudes that we that are unconscious. They're automatic, right? They're automatic. Um, this and this is important because the implicit attitudes, the hidden ones, right, the ones that are there but we don't express them, may to a large extent determine how we think and feel about something. And those implicit attitudes might be different than the explicit attitudes. Okay, the classic example is racism. Okay, now I might say, oh yeah, you know, I love Mexicans. They're just awesome, right? Mexicans are. I have lots of friends that are Mexicans, right? I got tons of friends that are. I got Mexicans coming out my ears. I love Mexicans, right? Um, And so I'll say it, right? And if anybody asks me, I'll tell them, right? And then if and then I do behaviors. I have I show positive behaviors toward Mexicans. I hire them, right? I'm pretty. Everything's cool, right? But what if on the inside, what if my implicit bias is saying, man, fuck Mexicans, I hate them. They're gonna steal from me, and they're lazy and they don't work. I always get confused. I think we're lazy and we steal. I think that's what it is. Which is odd because we do all the work in this country. But anyway, so, but I think we're lazy and we steal. But anyway, but I might have that implicit bias in me that says, oh, Mexicans are lazy and they steal, right? And what if and so suppose suppose anytime I'm not in public or anytime somebody's not watching, that's what I'll do. If I'm with if I'm with all my other friends at the KKK meeting, that are like that don't like Mexicans, I'll be talking about, oh yeah, I hate Mexicans. They're stupid and lazy, blah blah blah, 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 right? That's how I truly feel. That's how I truly feel. But in fact, and that's my implicit bias, and it's not typically what I will express in the world, right? The explicit. Now, one of the upshots of this is we're really bad at self-reporting, right? In other words, if I give you a survey to assess how racist you are, right? Let's say I put some survey together to assess how racist you are, and when I ask you, I ask you one of the questions I ask you is, uh, I agree with the following, agree or disagree with the following phrases. White people are smarter than Mexican people. You're like, well, how many people are going to honestly answer yes to that question? Nobody, right? Very few people will honestly answer that question, right? So that's why in a lot of research on racism, they have to get at the racism in a different way. And we'll talk about later some of the research methods they use to get at what's called the implicit bias toward certain races. Because you can't just ask people up, unless you're Donald Trump or right, or you just can't ask people straight up, "Are you a racist?" Right? Because most normal people will say, "No, of course not. I'm Black Lives Matter and Brown Lives Matter, blah blah blah." But so when you do research on it, you have to get at a different way. So you can't really trust self-reports when people report how they really feel about something. You have to get at the attitude in a different way, and we'll talk about that later. Um, so what's self-esteem? Anybody want to offer up oh, there's a baby. Does anybody want to offer up a definition of what self-esteem is? You want to unmute your mic and offer up a definition of what self-esteem is? What is self-esteem? Pretty
It's
simple.
it's whether it's like the level at which you like yourself, like or are confident in your own abilities and or
Yeah,
personality
yeah,
looks, that kind of thing.
yeah. I mean, that's basically it. I mean, essentially, it's your own evaluation about yourself. It's your own self-evaluation because we evaluate people all the time, right? Um, but self-esteem is how you evaluate yourself or your sense of worth, right? How you evaluate yourself or your sense of worth. The simple explanation, right? The simple explanation of self-esteem, right, is that we have like these areas that we're good at, right? So you might have self-esteem about uh, being a good student, being very attractive, being popular, right? Um, and it's thought, right? It used to be thought anyway that Your self-esteem was based on the sum total of your self-evaluation in all those different areas, right? As a student, as a parent, and it just added up. It's like, turns out that's not really the easiest, simplest explanation. um it turns out that people who, let me see, how can I put this? It's not just that if I believe I'm good at this area and this area and this area and this area, right? It works the other way. People who just generally like themselves, right? Not so much focused on different areas, right? Who just generally think they're persons of worth are going to end up being positive and good in those other small areas. So it's not like all those little areas that you think you're good at add up to your self-esteem, right? Your self-esteem by itself can influence how you do in all these different areas of your life, in your student life, in your parent life, right? So it doesn't go from bottom to up, right? It doesn't go from like all these different areas adding up to your self-esteem. It might be the other way around. It might be that you have self-esteem, and that you either have it or you don't, right? And then it goes down and it influences how good you are at different areas. Okay, which I personally believe is the case. I just based on my own personal life, I do believe that, right? Um,
To me, it kind of seems like that self-esteem is more based on personal perception rather than just the facts of like, oh yeah, like I factually
yes,
do well at these things, but like the perception of how we are as
yeah,
people. And
yeah. That's a really good way of putting it. That's another good way of putting it. Yeah, it's like your self-esteem is based on your own self-perception of yourself, and of course that could be completely wrong, right?
mhm,
That could be completely wrong. I have really low self-esteem. I've battled it my whole life. And I think, I mean, it's gotten better over the years, but I think, one of those ways that it's gotten better is I've had to change my thinking. I've had to change my thinking about, getting away from negative thoughts and focusing on more positive thoughts. Um, so what do we do to manage our self-esteem? Right. Well, one of the theories that's been presented that helps us a little bit to understand um, our self-esteem is called terror management theory. Terror management theory. Terror, like terror, like terror. And terror management theory says this: that people exhibit self-protective, emotional, and cognitive responses when they're confronted with reminders of their mortality. So people exhibit self-protective emotional and cognitive responses when they're confronted with reminders of their own mortality, I should say, mortality. So the reminder that you're not going to be around forever, right? That you're going to die, right? um, Usually, what that does is it influences us to believe more strongly in some of the in the emotional and cognitive beliefs that we've picked up from our culture and our past experiences. Um, so fundamentally, what that means is that the fear of death, right? The fear of death is what's motivating us to sort of pursue being better people and therefore to pursue enhancing our self-esteem, right? It's kind of a funky theory, right? But but I liked how they linked it to, like, the fear of death, right? Because the fear of death is a pretty strong motivator for a lot of different things, right?
Mr.
So what?
Lopez,
Yeah,
question. So, like, I just had a random thought. So,
sure.
like, is that like the fear of death and wanting to like extend a part of yourself?
Hmm.
Isn't that kind of why people have children?
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, that is one of the fundamental motivators for why people have children. Exactly, because fundamentally, right? You want to have an impact in the world, right? You want to leave something behind, right? And you don't have to have kids to do that, right? You can leave something behind by leaving behind something that's beautiful in the world, right? Whether you planted a bunch of trees or were an artist or something, right? But
Yeah.
having children is probably the easiest, quickest, and most fun way, way to leave something. But at least the beginning part of it is anyway the most fun way to leave something behind, right? Absolutely, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have kids, Taylor?
No, I do not.
Do you want to have kids? I'm going to ask you a personal question in front of
Um,
everybody. Do you want to have kids?
kind of no. Like, I like the idea
Yeah,
of children, but
yeah.
do I want them for myself? Probably not.
Well, okay. Let me
Which
ask
is
you.
like a stigma thought on its
No, no, no,
own.
no. Well, let me ask you another personal question. How old are you?
I am 20. I'm going to be 27 next week,
Oh, you're just a baby. Ah,
even though
you're
I feel
just a
old
babe.
and
No, no,
everything
no.
creaks.
No, I can tell you when I was 27, I did not want kids either. It wasn't until my 30s that I decided I wanted to have kids. But I was actually very anti-kid when I was 27. So, but no, yeah, I think it's something to think about, right? It's definitely something to think about. And like I said, Taylor, you don't have to have kids to leave something behind, right? I think if you're a good person and influence others and mentor others and give of yourself, whether that's your time or your talent or your treasure, or like I said, leaving behind a beautiful garden or planting trees or something like that, that's that that's awesome. That's a very awesome thing to do.
Yeah, my son's the same way. My son's 25 and he tells me the same thing. He doesn't want to have any kids. And my older daughter, she has 3 kids, and my younger one, he has 1 kid, but he's the middle child, and he says he doesn't want to have any kids.
Well, but so the grandparent thing has already been taken care of for you.
Yes.
Okay, so all right, so there's no pressure on him.
No.
Yeah, he may just end up like, you never know. I mean, but as you guys know, right? I mean, God, your life changes.
Hmm.
You never know, right? I mean, my God, you just
But I'm
never know.
fine with it, though. I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah,
his choice. So,
yeah. I mean,
yeah.
we tell our kids, we want them to have kids. We really do. We've
Hmm.
told them that ever since they were babies. I mean, we want them to have kids because we think it's important. We think that's like a great expression of life. But I am never ever stupid or foolish enough to think that my values in that regard are going to be good enough for everybody. That's insane, right? You can't ever assume that because people come at life from very very different perspectives, and I'm the first to admit I don't understand everybody's perspective, and that just means I need to keep my mouth shut when people are dealing with their own shit, unless they need my help, right? So that's my philosophy, but so low self-esteem. What is low self? Well, what's so bad about low self-esteem? Well, it kind of sucks. People with low self-esteem tend to be more vulnerable in anxiety, loneliness, and eating disorders. Um, Whenever people with low self-esteem are threatened, they tend to take an extremely negative view, right? So oh my God, everybody hates me. I'm going to be killed, and blah 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 blah. One of the things that doesn't work, and I can tell you this in personal experience. One of the things that doesn't work is you can't boost your self-esteem through repeating positive phrases. I'm good enough and smart enough, and doggone it, people like me, right? It's not, it doesn't work. It really doesn't work. Sometimes that backfires, right? Um, Also, the other thing that doesn't work with people with low self-esteem is telling them, trying to put a positive spin on something, right? So, you know, which which I tend to do this when one of the things I've learned in life is that there's no such thing as a mistake, or a bad thing. It's just feedback. So I try to learn everything I can from my whenever I have a bad experience. But you can't tell that to somebody with low self-esteem. Like for example, let's say somebody with low self-esteem gets fired, right? And you're talking to them, and they got fired from their job, and you say, well, you know what? At least you learned what you don't, which you learned about a place where you shouldn't work, and the type of the people that you shouldn't work with. I mean, that's a lot to learn. That's a good lesson to learn. And of course, they'll tell you to fuck off and die, right? Because like, just leave me alone, right? You're not helping me. um, People with low self-esteem tend to make less money, abuse drugs, and are more likely to be depressed and engage in acts of self-harm, such as cutting, right? This is one reason why young girls with low self-esteem are at such risk, right? Because it's bad enough in our society being a young girl. It's bad enough, right? When all the culture's trying to sexualize you, and everybody's out to get you, right? That's bad enough. But then if you have low self-esteem, you're going to be okay with people abusing you. You're going to be okay with abusing yourself, right? And then you're just going to get into a lot of trouble, right? My my wife and I worked really hard to make sure our kids had good self-esteem. I think we overdid it. I think it's like way over the. I think they're like they have too much esteem, but I was particularly worried about my daughter. She's 14 now. She's a beautiful young girl, and it's like you just, as a daddy, you just want her to be, want her to be as safe as possible, to be able to defend herself against the shitty shit that she's going to come against in the world. And having good self-esteem as a young girl is a very good thing to have. um, People with good self-esteem, with high self-esteem, are more likely to savor when good things happen, right? If you have low self-esteem and something good happens to you, what do you think? What are you thinking?
Won't last for long.
Something bad's coming. I just know it. Something bad's coming. That's what it is. I was guilty of that for a long time. But people with good self-esteem, they savor the good things and they appreciate them. People with good self-esteem show more initiative. They show more initiative, and are more willing to go out and take risks. Um, can you have too much self-esteem? Yeah,
Yeah.
it can get pretty bad. You can become what's called a narcissist, and narcissism it's really not too much self-esteem. It looks like it, but it's not. Um, if you once you cross a certain border between self-esteem and then you go into narcissism, you've crossed from being a quote unquote normal person into being a pathological person. Um, so narcissists have the high esteem part. They've got that. What they don't have is the esteem and appreciation for relationships. Okay, that's what they don't have. So it's almost like you took it's almost like you took a person with high self-esteem and then destroyed their ability to appreciate and like and love other people. Um, the other thing too, so once you take that other away, right? Somebody with good, normal, positive self-esteem um, think they're worthy and they're good, right? They feel that they're worthy and good, but a narcissist thinks they're more worthy and more gooder than everybody else. Okay, so you take away that other. Um, How many of you guys have heard of the Dark Triad? You ever heard of that? The Dark Triad. It's a combination of three personality traits that are that constitute basically somebody you just don't want to be around. The Dark Triad is narcissism, Machiavellianism. Don't even try to spell that. Just look it up later. Machiavellism, which is manipulating people for your own benefit, and psycho psychopathology, antisocial psychopath. Right? You get somebody who's an antisocial psychopath, a Machiavellian, and narcissistic, and you've got the Dark Triad. Turns out that a lot of business people, very successful business people, are pretty high in the Dark Triad. I can tell you, Elon Musk, he's he's a fucked up son of a bitch. I hate him with a passion, and because he uses people. He's just, I mean, Steve Jobs. You ever heard of Steve Jobs, the one of the founders of Apple? Get this: when Steve Jobs died, okay, he died in what, 2010, something like that. I can't remember when it was that he died, but he died of like I think it was pancreatic cancer, right? When he died, there were people who had worked with him who wrote articles with their name attached to it saying that they were glad he was dead. I mean, that's bad. If people are like publicly saying that they're glad that you're dead, you had to have been a miserable son of a bitch. And he was a horrible human being, an absolute. But they say he was a narcissist, a horrible narcissist, psychopath. I mean, he just used people like crazy, and he manipulated people. Um, what causes people to be narcissists? do, One of the things that you hear a lot is, do they hate themselves deep down inside, right? I don't know if you've ever heard that, right? But they hate themselves, and it turns out that's not true, right? It turns out they actually don't hate themselves. Um, they think that the feeling of superiority that comes with being a narcissist originates from childhood. So it's essentially that your parents are treating you like you deserve special treatment. Therefore, you're raised to think you always deserve special treatment. Therefore, you're going to become a narcissist, right? We have a narcissist as our president right now, Donald Trump. He is a classic narcissist, right? He's a dark triad. Um, and if you read his history about how he was raised, it's classic. He was a spoiled little rich guy, and his dad always bailed him out of situations, and he felt like he was always deserving of being treated well. So
Yeah, a silver spoon.
yeah, yeah, so a gold spoon.
Yeah, that
and,
too.
and me, I didn't even have a spoon when I was growing. I just had a stick. That's all I had back then. I liked it, I tell you. So
Charlie Brown Christmas tree.
that's right. um, so getting back to, so let's turn around, right? So we talked about narcissism and the self-esteem. Those are parts of the self, right? Those are parts of the self, your self-esteem. Another part of yourself that's really important in determining how you interact with the world is something called self-efficacy. Self-efficacy, Efficacy, self-efficacy. And basically this is just like the way it sounds. Self-efficacy is the belief that you are competent to operate in the world, that you're competent and effective to operate in the world. Now it's different from self-esteem, because self-esteem is just your assessment of your self-worth, right? That's just how much of a worthy human being are you. Self-efficacy is your belief in how well you can operate and do things in the world. So you can have very high self-esteem, right? So you can think and at the same time you can have very low self-efficacy, meaning that you don't think you could do anything, right? one of the things that good self-efficacy leads to is for you to set challenging goals for yourself and stick with it and work with it. People who have low self-efficacy don't do that. Right? It's like, well, I can't do anything anyway, so why the hell should I bother doing this, right? But one of the things you have to remember about the difference between self-efficacy and self-esteem is that they're completely different concepts. You can have high self-esteem and low self-efficacy, and you can have high self-efficacy and low self-esteem, right? That was actually me for a long time. I've always had very high self-efficacy. I've always believed that I can do anything. I mean, I'm just good at figuring shit out. That's just what I do, right? You put me in a situation, I will figure that shit out, right? I can fix things. I'm good at like operating in the world and figuring shit out, right? Um, I in my job when I was a consultant, I mean, I had to fly to different countries. I had to fly to two different countries every month, and I was going to like Korea and Japan and London and Switzerland, and I never had a problem. I would get to this country, and I would figure out how to get around on the train, on the bus, and where to find food, and it was I was just it was easy for me, and but I had really low self-esteem. I had really low self-esteem, and you can also have it the other way around. You can have very high self-esteem but kind of low self-efficacy, right? um, or hopefully if you're if you're the lucky person, you've got both high, right? You got both high self-esteem and high self-efficacy, right? Like all of y'all, right? All of y'all are like high self-esteem and high self-efficacy. I could tell just by looking at your faces. Y'all are just you guys are up there, right?
Well, my self-efficacy might be a little bit low. I'm not gonna lie.
Actually, my wife, she's like that. I think she has really good. My wife has real good self-esteem, great self-esteem, but I think her self-efficacy is kind of low, because she's always kind of like afraid to do new things, and she's like, I don't know if I
Yeah,
can.
I'm kind of like that. I mean, I used to have low self-esteem as well. I've kind of gotten to where I've grown, and that's less of an issue now. But
That's good. That's
I
good.
definitely
Yeah.
think low self-efficacy is still an issue.
Well, that's a tough. I think they're both tough to improve. They really are. But the self-efficacy one is just, basically just coming out of your comfort zone and showing people that you can do things, right?
Yeah, that's what sucks.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. Um, I think I'll stop there since it's 6:21. Does anybody have any questions or comments? Anybody have any stories to share about their self-esteem or lack thereof? um, or anything like, or what do those of you that have kids,
I do.
yeah,
I think that like so I think it all kind of depends too with the self efficacy is if you grow up like
yeah,
maybe your household. If you have siblings or you don't. Like I didn't have siblings growing up.
absolutely.
So
That
I
I
did
think
everything
that has a lot to
myself.
do with it. Yeah, that has a lot to do with it. Let me tell
Yeah.
you.
And it was
So
just always I can do it, I can do it, I can do it because there ain't nobody else around to do it, you
well,
know?
let me tell you a couple things, right? So I think the reason I have such high self-efficacy is because I was the oldest. I was the oldest of four, the only boy, and I had four sisters. And I think
Mhm.
right there, in Mexican culture, sons are like,
Yeah.
much
You're the
higher
leader.
than yeah. So I think right there that helped. As for my wife, she has an older sister who's about a year older than she is, and that woman was like super overachiever of the world. I mean,
Wow.
she graduated from high school when she was like, I think like 14 or 15.
Oh wow.
By the time she was 20, she had her college degree. She had two college degrees in
Wow.
engineering. Super super smart. And I think that sort of like overshadowed my wife, kind of put her down a little bit because she thought, well, I'll never be as good as my sister, so why bother, right? So that's why I think her self-efficacy is a little bit low. But
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. I think a lot of it comes from the way we were raised, and what we were presented with. So,
Mhm.
so yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Emmanuel, looked like you were jogging.
No, I was actually going to do my laundry, like in between. Yeah.
All right, that's awesome. All
It's
right, well, listen, guys, have a good weekend, and I'll see you on Monday evening.
Have a good weekend.
Okay. All right. Have a good weekend.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
All right. Bye bye.
Okay.
Oh, sir.
Bye.
Yeah.
I apologize for being late. I'm gonna be honest with you. I totally forgot about the class, even though I had an alarm set.
I almost forgot too. I was like, oh, Friday, man, I'm gonna kick back and relax.
Anyways,
Alexa, did you have something to say, Alexa? Oh, I can't hear you, Alexa. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay. I have a friend that is trying to get into your class, and I know today is the last day. She sent you an email. She asked me to message you. She actually saw you and me, or me taking the class, and she was like, "You look awesome," and so she wanted to join.
Yeah, I think it's already past 5 though.
But she told me to tell you that she sent you an email, and I know today's the last day, so I mean, I'm sure you're busy to get ready for the weekend, but if you don't mind checking it.
Yeah. Yeah, she can come in. I've already let in like 2 other people. It's full technically, but since it's online, I'm like, there's you don't have to worry about a place to sit. So
Awesome. You're perfect. Thank you so much and have a great
you
weekend.
too, Alexa. Bye bye. Take care.
Bye-bye. You too.
So am I counted absent for today since I wasn't here at the beginning?
No. You're good. You're good.
Oh, okay.
You're
All
good.
right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Sorry again.
you showed up on the Zoom, so you're there.
Yeah, I'll set 2 alarms next time to make sure I don't forget.
All right.
I'm actually gonna do that right now.
Okay. Well, take
But
care
thank
of
you,
yourself.
sir.
Bye,
Yeah,
Reagan.
you too. Have a good week.
You too.
Hello.
Hey, Emmanuel, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, wonderful.
Yes, sir. I had a couple questions I wanted to run by you.
Sure.
So, just by hearing you speak last week, I already enjoyed the class a lot, and I'm kind of wish we could take it in person, but
I
I also have
know.
some
Oh,
questions.
tell me
Yeah.
about it. Yeah, this sucks. It really does.
Yes, sir. And so I have a couple questions. I'm graduating in December,
Oh,
and I've
awesome.
always just stuck with psychology all throughout, but I've kind of realized what I want to do, how much school is going to take. So, because I kind of want to go into behavioral therapy, cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yep.
And so, but I'm
That's
also,
more graduate school. Yeah.
yes, sir. But I've also recently gained a little interest in tech a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of like stuck in between because I understand you said you worked with tech. You
Yeah.
work at IBM.
That's right.
Yes,
Yep.
sir. And
Yeah.
so,
Well, what aspect of tech has got you most interested?
I'm not too sure because I'm completely starting from fresh, but I'm
Mhm.
actually been learning HTML
Mhm. Yep.
recently. So I'm kind of